Welcome to the Slut Next Door podcast, where we dive deep into desire, unravel kinks and fetishes, and explore the deliciously naughty side of self-discovery. I'm Beatrix Vale, an erotic audio creator, and your guide to all things kinky and curious. So let's begin. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Slut Next Door. Today's episode was actually inspired by a really thoughtful question from one of you. They asked me about all the sound effects I use in my hypnosis files. You know, like the little things, like the reverb on my voice, the whispers you hear in the background, binaural beats, and even the snaps you've probably noticed here and there. They were curious about why I choose those effects and what they're meant to do for your experience, beyond just sounding nice. And I thought that was such a great topic because every little sound you hear is there for a reason. It's intentional. So, in this episode, I'm going to walk you through some of the choices that I make when editing my files. I'll talk about the intention behind them and maybe even help you appreciate the way sound shapes your trance a little bit more. So, let's dive into the world behind sound. So, we're going to start with one of my favorites, and definitely something you will hear in most hypnosis files, and that is reverb and echo. These are effects that artists like me put on our vocal tracks in the editing process, and they both are all about creating a feeling of space. So when you hear my voice with a little reverb, it sounds like I'm in this big open room with you, or even like I'm everywhere at once. It makes my words feel bigger, more powerful, and even just a little bit surreal, which is exactly the point of using that effect. It helps pull you out of the everyday and into that dreamy, floaty headspace where hypnosis happens so easily. And then echo, it's a little bit more dramatic. So when you hear one of my words kind of like trail off and repeat softly in the distance, that's echo. And it's a really fun effect to put on words or commands that I may want to emphasize because it really makes them feel like they're just sinking deeper into your mind. And what's great about the echo effect is I think it allows me to just reinforce a suggestion or a phrase and almost letting it ripple through your subconscious. And using these effects isn't just to make something sound pretty. It's about playing how close or far away I feel to you in a moment and how that shifts your attention and your emotions. Now, I love giving live examples here on the podcast. So let me give you an example of what reverb and echo actually sound like and how they change the way my words feel. So, if you want to just bring attention to my voice right now, this is just how it is. No effects at all, just very close, very personal. Now, listen as I add some reverb. Notice how it sounds like I'm in a bigger space, almost like my voice is surrounding you, maybe even filling the room. And that just makes everything feel a little more dreamy, doesn't it? Like you're already sinking into a different headspace. And now let's take it one step further and add echo. You'll hear my words trail off, repeating softly, almost like they're bouncing around inside your mind. Deeper, deeper. Just listen. It's so different. So, do you see how different that feels compared to just my plain voice? That's why I love playing with these effects. They really help to shape a mood and also guide your experience through a file. Now, next up, let's talk about binaural beats. One of these subtle little touches, maybe you don't even consciously notice in my files, but they do play a big role in how your mind and body respond. So, binaural beats are an auditory illusion, and it's created when your brain processes two different sound frequencies played separately to each ear. And so then that results in the perception of a third, like a phantom tone at a different frequency. It's very confusing. Definitely Google it because it's very fascinating stuff. But what to me is most fascinating is how this phenomenon works in your mind. But going back, so if I were to create a binaural beat and I played this tone or this beat at say 210 hertz in your left ear and then 200 hertz in your right, your brain hears a 10 hertz beat that actually isn't there. And the interesting part is that over time, your brain waves start to synchronize with that frequency. And that is what is called frequency following response. And it's been shown scientifically that it helps shift your brain into different states. So there's different frequencies associated with the mental state. So there's delta waves, which are 1 to 4 hertz. They are linked to deep sleep. Theta waves, 4 to 8 hertz, are associated with dreamy, meditative, and highly suggestible mental states, which make them perfect for trance, of course. And then there's alpha waves from around 8 to 12 hertz that are calm but alert, like a light, relaxed focus. So when it comes to me picking a binaural beat track, I'm choosing one that matches the tone and depth of trance that I want you to reach in that file. Sometimes it's as simple as hearing how that tone makes me feel and deciding if it's right for the track. Now, I do want to clarify, I don't create these tracks myself. I do use high quality binaural tracks created by others, and then I blend them very intentionally into my files. Most of the time, I'm keeping them at a very low level because it's just an added little effect. It shouldn't be the center of the file. It's like just below awareness. So for me, I don't want you distracted by them, but your brain is still following along with the intended mental state. There are a few files where I have up the volume more than usual, and those are, if you're familiar with my work, the beta pre-jack virus. It's very like mind fucky. There's a lot of stuff going on, and the effect of the file was to overload you. So if If the effect of the file is to overload you, I'm going to make the volume higher than I usually do. That way it just comes through a little stronger. But either way, if it's very low level or if it's a higher level, it's all about supporting your mind and letting go and dropping into the right state for my words to really sink in. And if you're wearing headphones now, you might start to notice one in the background, that soft, steady hum beneath my voice. That's your brain starting to sync with the beat, making it easier to relax and to follow. So, next time you are listening to one of my files, see if you can notice it or don't. I mean, either way, it's working on helping you sink just a little deeper. Now, next, I'm going to talk about one of the most personal and intimate effects I use, which are whisper layers. I personally love this technique because it adds this delicious, almost subconscious dimension to the file that you can feel, even if you can't always pinpoint it. So, let's first talk about why whispers work so well. So, from a psychological standpoint, whispering is just inherently more intimate than normal speech. We tend to only whisper when we're close to someone or when we want to say something secret, something meant just for them. So when you hear whispers in my files, it immediately triggers this sense of closeness and focus. And I hope that you feel like the words are meant for you and you alone. It also activates a part of your nervous system, that the part that helps you relax, because whispers tend to feel safe, personal, and soothing. And we all know about ASMR. I think that there is something, some of us really respond well to that, to those kinds of sounds. But in terms of editing, I'll often record several layers of whispered mantras. Things like deeper or good boy. If it's a custom file, even your first name. And then I blend them softly into the background. And sometimes they're perfectly clear, especially when it happens when there's a pause in the main vocal track. But sometimes they're buried just enough that your conscious mind can't quite make out what's being said, but your subconscious still picks it up. And that's where it gets really powerful. Even when you think you're only listening to my main voice, those whispers are already planting little suggestions deeper in your mind. And I'm also using the multi layers, my main vocal track and then some whisper layers to assist in trance, because sometimes you're trying to hear those whisper layers, like you're actively trying to hear them. And then you're also at the same time listening and soaking in what I'm saying in the main track. So then your mind is not thinking anything. It's trying to listen, and that helps you get into trance sometimes. But whispers can also add what you can call like texture and depth to the overall soundscape, and it makes it feel layered and immersive. Like you're surrounded by my voice instead of just hearing it from one place. And of course, whispers are just sensual sometimes, most of the time. There's there really is something about that soft, breathy sound in your ear that can send chills down your spine. So if you're listening with headphones, you might even hear them now. Deeper. Like my breath is right against your ear, reminding you how easy it is to let go. So next time you're listening to one of my files and you catch a whisper that gives you goosebumps, you can now know that it's there on purpose. And it's doing exactly what I want it to. Now, finally, we're going to talk about something a little sharper, the finger snap. You've probably noticed this in a lot of my files, a sudden, crisp little sound that seems to cut through everything. And there's a reason for that. And it's not just for dramatic effect. So, snapping is what is called an auditory trigger. It's sudden and it's a distinctive sound that grabs your attention instantly. So, from, say, a psychological perspective, we're wired to respond to sharp, percussive sounds. They're attention getting, they break patterns, and they signal something important is happening. And that's exactly why I use it in hypnosis. So when you're already in trance, totally blissed out, not thinking in another world almost, and you hear that snap, it reinforces the suggestion I just gave you. Or it deepens your state by jolting your focus right back to me. It can also act as like an anchor, a conditioned response. So if you hear me say sleep and then a snap, and I keep pairing those two together, your subconscious starts to link them. And then eventually, just the sound of my snap alone is enough to drop you deeper, like a little Pavlovian trigger. And of course, there's the psychological dynamic too. A snap feels commanding. Like it's something you associate with someone calling the shots, getting your attention and demanding your focus. I immediately think of, when humans are training animals, sometimes you snap to get them to do something to get their attention. So in a hypnosis file, this sharp, dominant sound can be incredibly effective. So, of course, we're going to give a live demonstration, and I could just snap like normal. I'll give you an example. So, this is my normal snap, no effects to it. Not bad. But I have a snap that I have added different effects to that, in my opinion, make it a bit stronger and more fit in the file, especially when all the other effects are going. So let's do an example. So right now, if I say drop, you can almost feel yourself react, can't you? I mean, even here, just talking about it, your brain and body remember what that sound means. Or if I'm going to say harder with the snap, it just brings your brain to what I'm saying in that moment, and it wants to react. So the next time you hear a snap in one of my files, you'll know it's never random. It's just another tool that I use to train your mind and your body to respond exactly how I want. And that brings us to the end of today's little peek behind the soundscape of my hypnosis files. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about the intention behind the effects that I use. that reverb and echo that make my voice feel bigger than life, the binaural beats that quietly guide your brain into that perfect state, the whispers that sink into your subconscious, and then the snaps that remind you who's in charge. Everything you hear in my files is chosen carefully, not just to sound good, but to shape how you feel, how you respond, and how deep you go for me. I mean, that's what makes erotic hypnosis so powerful. It's not just words, it's an experience, and sound is such a huge part of that. So I want to thank you to the fan who suggested this topic. I love hearing you guys' feedback on what you do want to hear. It's incredibly helpful and gives me, this chance today to share my craft and connect with you in a different way. And if you're just discovering me, never have heard my hypnosis files, I encourage you to go to my website, missbeatrix.com, and you'll find free files, and then you'll find a huge catalog of exclusive audios that I have posted on various sites. And I hope it's a little bit more fun to hear my files now that you know all my little secrets. So until then, keep listening, keep letting go, and keep enjoying the little ways my voice work on you. Until next time. And that's a wrap for this episode of The Slut Next Door, where we dive deep into the raw, unapologetic truths of human desire. If you loved what you heard today, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a juicy moment. Want to connect with me outside the podcast? Click the link in my bio where you can find lots of juicy content and options. Until next time, I'm Beatrix Vale, your Slut Next Door, and I'll see you in the next episode.